So, without further ado, I believe that I'm gonna call this series the Emancipated Star. So the title should be something like the Emancipated Star. This is, I think, part one. So let me start over. Let me do like an actual intro. Hi, I am Starlini, but my channel name is like something different. So I would just say, hi. I'm gonna read through it, and I'm not even gonna edit this part. I am Starlini. But you can call me as Verolina or Sovereign. That's what the S stands for, other than like my real name. And I also wanted to say something else, but I don't remember. So my name, my what you can call me. Oh yes, the title of the series. Duh. Okay, yes. So let me start again. I am Starlini, but you can call me as Verolina or Sovereign, or like nothing. You don't really have to call me anything actually. But yes, I am the Emancipated Star. This is the story of the Yeah, it's coming to me. It's coming to me. I am the Emancipated Star. This is the story of the Emancipated Star. This is the story of my life, specifically the most impactful moments of my life before, during, and after my emancipation at the age of 16 years young. So that's all I've got for an intro. I'll work on it, because I'm not new to this. I'm true to this, but I haven't been doing this, so it's gonna take a while for me to like get into the groove of this. Because I am a poetess. Anyhow, I'm just wasting my battery right now. I'm just wasting it. But this is this is a part one. This is kind of like a preface. This is kind of like a backstory part. So the like official part where I really get into like where my story begins in the foster home will probably be like towards the very end of this video, or like in just part two. But in this part I just want to give a bit of backstory about like where I come from through my parents. So like where my parents come from, because I do think that it's a good idea. I don't want to like go into too much of like a history lesson, although like I think I'll probably spend like 10 minutes on it, truth be told. So you might want to fast forward, you might want to listen, you might want to get your pencil, get your pen or whatever, get your notebook or whatever, or whatever you want to do. Go like wash your dishes or something. But yes, I do want to just give some backstory, because one thing that I realized, like growing up in the United States, is a first generation American, but someone who is Caribbean. Like I am French Caribbean, Hispanic Caribbean. Like if you ever heard of a French West Indian, that's like people who are from the French Caribbean. Or like if you've ever heard of like a Caribbean Latino, like people who are from the West Indies. So we're Caribbean, but we're also part of Latin America, because we come from one of the like former colonies that were established by like the quote unquote Latinos, by the Spaniards, by the French, and by the Portuguese. So like that's how someone who's Brazilian is Latino, even though a Brazilian person speaks Portuguese, not Spanish, because you don't have to speak Spanish or come from a Spanish speaking country to be Latino. To be Hispanic, that means you come from a Spanish speaking country. That's how people who are Spaniards from Spain are Hispanic, but they're not Latino necessarily, but someone who is from Brazil, that's a Brazilian person, or an Haitian, a Haitian person, a Martinican person, a Saint Martiner, or a French Guianan person. Those are French West Indians. Those are French Latinos. Those are Latinos, right? But they don't speak Spanish. They speak French. French is one of the Roman languages, like Latin language or Roman languages. So yes, I realize like a lot of people don't know stuff like that, and by a lot of people I mean people in the United States. And I think it's because when you go to public school here, they really don't like spend that much time on the Caribbean. Like you'll learn that slavery occurred. You'll learn a few tidbits about what the United States had to do with it, but not definitely not like the entirety of the United States' involvement, and definitely not a lot of the wrongdoing of the United States, of course. So a lot of people are just ignorant, and ignorant doesn't mean like you're stupid. Ignorant just means you don't know something. But people are willfully ignorant here. People don't care People just look at you like if you're brown skin and you come from the Caribbean, they just look at you and they just call you black. And even if you like maintain your ethnic identity, like no, I'm a Saint Martiner, I'm French Guyanese, I'm Surinamese, I'm Guyanese, I'm whatever, I'm Dominican, I'm Martinican, I'm Cuban. They just like strip you of your ethnic identity and then they want to call you a color. They want to like racialize you, make you white, make you black. And then if you maintain your ethnic identity and you're like, no, I'm not black, no, I'm not white, then they want to say you're anti-white and you're anti-black and you're racist and all this stuff. But what the US Americans, the white and the black, don't seem to understand is outside of this like racial bubble and racial vortex that we live in here in this country, the rest of the world does not divide itself like that. And the people do not identify themselves with colors. They don't like reduce themselves to a color when they have an ethnicity. Your ethnicity tells you where it tells you who a person is, or it tells you more about where a person comes from. From someone's ethnicity, you can gauge like what their culture is. If you tell me someone's Indian, if you tell me someone is Cambodian, like I can imagine two specific things. If you tell me someone is Ethiopian, if you tell me someone is Panamanian, if you tell me someone is Costa Rican, I can specifically imagine what I know about Panamanian culture, like or the Panamanian, like there's a little bit about their history. Like Panamanians are not Caribbeans. Like there are brown skinned Panamanians, but because they're indigenous people, all of the indigenous people all over the world are brown skinned and are naturally brown skinned, deeply melanated people. But they're not Caribbean. They're lumped in with the Caribbeans, just like the Belizeans are, and it's due to racism. But they're an entirely different group of people. They have their own indigenous ancestors who are Native Americans as well, but a different group of Native Americans. Like the native people of Mexico are not the same native people of Guatemala and Costa Rica. They all have different ethnicities. And it's when you know someone's ethnicity that you can get an idea of like I said, who a person is or like where they come from, what their culture is, I mean. But when you say someone's white, well, what does that mean? A white American, I can gauge. But if you say, oh, that white person or that black person, and the whole time you're talking about a Guyanese, well, a brown skinned Guyanese person is not the same as a black American, just because they may look similar. You know, those of us who are brown skinned Caribbean Latinos, we may look like some of the black Americans, but we are not the same. And it's so ignorant and it's so annoying and it's so irritating that when you come here or if you're born here in the United States, the people, they like to strip you. And honestly, from my experience, it's way more the black Americans than it is the white Americans. The ignorance is on both sides, but it's the black Americans who are very like out there and loud about calling you anti-black and trying to make it seem like you, like they say that there's a saying that black Americans have that like, oh, Africans and Caribbeans, that we come here with elitism. No, I don't think so. If anything, what I've experienced and what I know like plenty of us have experienced is xenophobia is what it's called. Xenophobic comments, prejudice, discriminatory, racist comments from the black Americans towards us because our people, our parents can get deported. Black Americans can't get deported. Get deported where? Where are they going to get deported to? Right? So they have a sense of elitism because we are the only people they can look down on. We're the only people that they can feel above because to be a brown skinned person from Africa, from like, you know, Southeast Asia and from the Caribbean, right, to look like them, but to not be from the United States means you go through everything that they go through. But in addition to that, you also go through what immigrants and migrants or first generation people go through. You go through getting treated like a black person, quote unquote, but then you also go through people telling you to speak English. Like the way I grew up, there was so much pressure to speak English very, very, very well. That's why I do speak English very well. It's because I understood that I knew that my parents were subjected to the, you know, you need to speak English comments, and I didn't want that to be me. I had an accent when I was a child, and when I was transferred to my birth parents' custody, which I'll talk about later on anyway. One of the things I was told was, you talk funny, you talk weird, you talk like you're not from here. And it wasn't like people tell me that now, but it's because of my like opinions. Like I have, I guess, controversial opinions, whatever. But it was because of my accent. I came from Miami, and I guess I had an accent. And so people were like, you talk weird, don't talk like that. And I didn't know what they were talking about. So I became very self-conscious of the way that I spoke and a pressure to speak English very well so I didn't sound foreign. Black Americans don't have to worry about sounding foreign, having a name that makes them foreign, having eating food or whatever, having anything about you that makes you seem foreign and then makes you more of a target. Because due to the ignorance of the Americans on both sides, white and black, and even the mix, due to the ignorance, but primarily on the white and the black side, they oftentimes, when you are foreign, you are subjected to ignorant comments. When I've seen Black American people say things like, "Oh, swim back to where you're from," you know, as if any of these U.S. Americans could handle what it's like to have to cross countries, cross continents, get on a boat with just a bag and come all the way to the United States and leave everything behind. The way we're so soft in this country, especially the people who are the generational Americans who have been here in the United States for so long, they couldn't even handle what the migrants go through when they cross South America, cross into all throughout Central America, cross the rivers cross the river between Mexico and the U.S. border. They couldn't handle any of that. They couldn't handle, but they'll be like, "Oh, swim back," making fun of the fact that people struggle so much to get here, and it's just ignorance. It's just ignorance, but that's why I'm here today. That's why before I get to the part where I talk about where I begin talking about my experience in the foster home, I wanted to just dedicate, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes or something. I don't know. I'll try to make it quick. But I just wanted to share a little bit about like my parents' countries and just the Caribbean as a whole, just a little bit of history, because like I said, I realize a lot of people are very, very ignorant, and it's not even just US Americans. Like sometimes I've like spoken to people like Middle Eastern people on the Eastern Hemisphere, and they don't even know like where like the islands that my parents, or the island my parents come from, they don't even know like anything about the Caribbean. And I'm like, wow, it's like we've been erased. We've been erased, and it's because when we're brown skinned, first of all, if you're a brown skinned Caribbean Latina or Latino, it's like they don't want the world to know you exist. It's like the propaganda here, they'll always show you a white person like Jennifer La Negrita Lopez, right? They always show you like a white person. They'll always show you white Hispanic people. And so when people think of a Hispanic and when people think of a Latino, they always think of white people because they only ever show you white people. And they only ever call those people by their ethnicity. Like Jennifer Lopez was born in the United States, but they love to be like the Puerto Rican this and that. The Puerto Rican singer, even though didn't they say she wasn't singing? The Puerto Rican this and that. But she's a white American. But when you're a brown skinned person coming from Puerto Rico, they will say the black, the black, the black. Well, why don't they say the white, the white, the white when they're talking about Jennifer Lopez? You know? That's what I'm talking about, like the racism and the stripping us of who we are, so that when people think of our countries where we're indigenous too, our islands where we're indigenous, they think that white people are indigenous there, and then they think of us as just like slaves or descendants of slaves that are Africans. Like literally the most ignorant comment that I hear from Black Americans is that Caribbeans are just Africans that got dropped off. It's just so ignorant, and it's just so it's just so ignorant, and it's like the Black Americans and the white Americans aren't even informed of the truth about where they come from and the truth about who they are. So it's so weird that they're like so adamant and like the way that they need to insist on telling us who we are, when we are far more closer to our ethnic identity and aware of our ethnic identity and our roots and our history than they are. You know, Black Americans descend from African people who were kings and queens, and like they have like no connection to that whatsoever. Like they don't relate to that whatsoever. And we're just far more aware of like who we are, and it's just weird the way that like the Americans like to impose that onto us. But yeah, like I said, a lot of it is because of propaganda. A lot of it is because whenever you do see a brown skinned person like me who comes from, like, I was born here, I'm an American, whether you're born in the Caribbean, whether you're born Central America, South America, North America, we are all Americans. So I am American, even though I am, yes, Caribbean, specifically a Caribbean American. But yes, what I mean to say is I'm a U.S. American citizen as well. Pero sí, anywho, because I can go on and on. I realize like I should just move on, and I'll lump all this in, I guess, as I'm telling the story, because culture and ethnicity and identity is all going to come up all throughout this whole video series. It's all going to come up, and the comments, the ignorant comments I received, it's all going to come up. Anywho, so with all that being said, let me actually go back and let me begin with my with the islands, the island my parents are from. So my parents are from the island of Ayiti. Right now, if you search up Ayiti, you're probably going to see the island Hispaniola. You're going to see information about the island called Hispaniola. Well, our island was called Ayiti before 1492. In 1492, as we hear like, oh, Christopher Raggedy, that's what I call him, Christopher Raggedy Columbus. Christopher Raggedy Columbus came over in 1492 with him and his raggedy men. But prior to 1492, the island that my parents are from was called Ayiti. And it wasn't split between the Dominican Republic, and there was no Dominican Republic. There was just Ayiti. Ayiti is Haiti. When I say Ayiti, I'm saying Haiti. Haiti is Ayiti. Ayiti, Haiti. Haiti, Ayiti. The whole island was Haiti. The whole island was Ayiti. You can search this up. It is documented. The indigenous people of the island were Haitians or Haitians. That's what they call us. That's how they pronounce it, but it's Haitians. We are always called Haitians. We are Haitian people. On both sides of the island, the indigenous people were Haitian people. Ayiti is what both sides of both groups of people, if you will, they're the same people but spread across like two different sides of the island. The island is split by a river, and that'll come up later actually. But yeah, so on both sides of the island, the indigenous people knew the island to be Ayiti. So when you listen, if you are familiar a little bit with Caribbean history, you may be aware that Christopher Columbus stumbled across one side of the island, right? And he encountered these, there are a lot of things he encountered. The theory of mermaids and manatees, all that kind of stuff, that's also laced into the history, but that's for another time. But he encountered a group of people, and our people greeted him with our salutation, our greeting, which is Taino, Taino. Taino, that's like saying welcome, like Assalamu alaikum, It was a greeting. And he wrote back to, I guess, the parliament that we were the Taino people, even though we are not the Taino people, we are the Caribs, right? We're the Arawak Caribs. The Arawak Caribs are native to South America and established themselves all throughout the Caribbean islands and even at the base of Florida, but primarily all throughout the Caribbean islands. And each group of Caribs named themselves or referred to themselves based on the name of their islands. So the Caribs that went to Jamaica called themselves Jamaicans or Jamaicans. So the Caribs that were in Jamaica called themselves Jamaicans. The Caribs that went to, we call it Puerto Rico today, but it was actually called Borican. So the Caribs that went to Borican called themselves Boricua. That's why if you know Puerto Ricans, they say Boricua all day, every day. That's because, like I said, we know who we are. We maintain who we are. We are aware of who we have always been, right? So the Caribs in Borican called themselves Boricuas. The Caribs in Jamaica or in Jamaica called themselves Jamaicans. The Caribs of Ayiti called themselves Haitians, right? And we all were aware that we are Caribs, like the Caribbean Sea. That's why it's called that's why we have what is called the Caribbean Sea. It's named after us Caribbean people, right? We are all aware that we were the Arawak Carib. There are many divisions of the Arawaks. We were the Caribs, right? But we specifically refer to ourselves based on by the name of the island we come from. I'm gonna just tidbit a little bit because I want to connect this. I thought this is very interesting that if you know a little bit about the Canaanites and Phoenician history, it's the exact same thing. The Canaanites were the Canaanites, but the Greeks came along and called the Canaanites Phoenicians. But the Canaanite people always maintain, no, we're not Phoenicians, we are Canaanites. So they were, if you search up Phoenicians, you're going to get some history. But if you search up Canaanites, you're going to get the history before they were called Phoenicians. And there's this like falsehood where sometimes things are documented as if Phoenicians and Canaanites are two separate people. They're not two separate people, they're the exact same people. It's just what you'll see all throughout world history is wherever the colonizers came, what their tactic is to go into a land, go into a territory, and change the people's name, change the people's understanding of themselves. They change your history and they change your name, so they change who you know yourself to be. And everywhere these colonizers, these conquistadores went, they did the exact same thing. That's why I'm connecting the two. Because the Canaanites were always Canaanites, but the Greeks came along and called them Phoenicians. And then, you know, referred to change the history to make it seem like they're two different people, cause this fake division and stuff like that. But the Canaanites referred to themselves as Canaanites, but specifically whatever they named, like the city state, that's what it's called, like the Phoenician city states. They named themselves based on whatever the name of the city-state was. So that the city-state of Tyre, like I think they're called Tyrians or Tyranians, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And I'm not that well versed on their history, so like way more like my own history as a Caribbean. But I believe that they were called like Tyrians or Tyranians, that's how you say it, like Tyrians. And then the Canaanites that lived in like Sidon were called like Sidonians, I believe. So you have, they're all aware they're Canaanites, but they call themselves Sidonians if they're from Sidon or Sidon. I think Sidon is probably correct. I don't know. But they call themselves Sidonians. If they're from Tyre, they call themselves Tyrians. But they all are aware that they are Canaanites. Kind of like in the United States, we're all U.S. Americans, right? But if you come from Texas, you are a Texan. If you come from California, you are a Californian. If you come from Florida, you are a Floridian. But we are all what? U.S. Americans. Same concept, kind of, right? So the Canaanites were aware that they're all Canaanites. But if you're a Canaanite from Tyre, you're a Tyrian. If you're a Canaanite from Sidon, you're a Sidonian. Now I'm going to go back over to the West. Keep up with me, please. And so now we're in the West Indies and the Caribbean, right? We're all aware we're all Caribbeans, right? But if you're a Caribbean and if you're in Jamaica, you're Jamaican. If you're a Caribbean and you're in Borican, you're Boricua. If you're a Caribbean and you are in Ayiti, you're Haitian. We're all the same group of people, and the Caribbeans are native to South America. So the northern region of Colombia, including Suriname, Guyana, French Guiana, all of that, and I believe in the northern part of Brazil as well. All of that is where our people first started. We all originally came from South America, and like I said, migrated north and established ourselves. We all knew ourselves to be Caribbeans well before 1492. We all were the same people, just spread out and calling ourselves different things based on the name of our island, right? So when Christopher Columbus comes into the picture, right? Nobody invited them. They didn't stumble anywhere. They intentionally came over because they were on a quest for gold. And it's such an insult the way that they lie in the U.S. textbooks. They lie and make it seem like, or it really just teach us when we're children that that he just came across the wrong island, but he didn't turn back around. If you walk into somebody's house and you realize that's not your house, you leave quickly. You don't stay and rape and enslave and pillage. No, that sounds like somebody who came with a vengeance, because that's exactly what happened. Christopher Raggedy Columbus and his people came with a vengeance, okay? And he wrote back. If you would like to, I would encourage people to go read some of the things that Christopher Columbus wrote back to the Parliament, I believe it was, whoever. He wrote in his journal several things that showed like how foul his character really was. Of course, like to do all the things that they had done, you have to be a demon. Not a. I don't think they were people. They were demons. Demons. I don't think people realize we're not all people. We may all look like people, but I truly believe there are people, and then there are demons who look like people, and that's how some of these entities that we call people can do the heinous things that they're doing. It's because they're demons in people's skin. It's like a wolf in sheep clothing, a demon in human's clothing, or in human skin, in human disguise. Because I don't think human beings do what these entities, these colonizers and conquistadores have done. That's not humanity. That's definitely not God's people. That's not godly at all. Anywho, our people, like I said, please keep up with me. I know this is a lot of information. But anywho, our people greeted Christopher Raggedy Columbus and his men on the ship. And they said, Taino, Taino, right? And he took his blade out and he cut them. He put his blade out because he thought that they were, going to attack him, I suppose. When you are on the offense, or when you're looking to offend and harm people, you're primed to think everyone's doing the same thing. It's projection. Projection means reality or something like that. I don't know. Anywho, so he cut them, if I remember correctly, and I do from his journal, he wrote that he cut them. And like he put his blade out, like when they greeted him, and they reached for the blade because our people, the Caribs, had not ever seen that metal. They had never seen their reflection before, so they were enamored with it. They were in awe. So he put his blade out. They reached for the blade and they cut themselves. And then he wrote back in his journal that these people will be great for enslavement because they're so stupid, because they don't know what metal is, because they've never seen their reflection. They're so stupid. Yeah, but I was over here so deep into it, my camera stopped recording, but my battery is still going strong. Thank God. Okay, boys, I'm gonna try to hurry up.
In an instant, anatomy all I see, and the lights get out. And the lights get out. And the lights get